Game 3 of the night, the opening day of the Hungarian Darts Trophy, and it is two quite good pals who've been pitted against each other. And I'll be honest, there's a sort of little zone somewhere between neck and waist where that's the only place on that stage right now where there's not something outrageous going on, because Alan Suter's trousers and Joseph Rutschke's wearing his specs on his head are certainly looks you will not see repeated by anybody else in the field this weekend. Now, it looks like Rutschke's not going to play with the specs on. I don't think he's allowed to, which is a shame because it's something of a trademark for him. But he said before the draw was made he would love to play Alan Suter. They've played each other before in qualifying for one of the big WDF majors. Had an absolutely belter of the game, and Suits won it with a 1-4-8 checkout after being pushed all the way. All of this info courtesy of the weekly Dartscast, by the way. Listen to it, it's very good.
Hello and welcome to an episode of the weekly Dartscast, sponsored by Dartwolf. I'm Alex Moss, and delighted to say with me as always, Mr. Hang Tight. He's not the birthday boy this week. We've got 51 weeks to go, but the countdown is on. It is Darts statistician Burton DeWitt. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. I like when I'm far away from my next birthday because it means it's a long time until I'm older again. How are you, Alex?
Good to hear. Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. Excited to keep the show going because some of you might have seen on Twitter that I've got a new role involved with the darts. Looking forward to working with the guys at Darts Corner and Mission Darts, helping them with their content. But pleased that we can keep bringing you more dynamite darts content. And the World Cup, when you're listening to this, just 1 week away. We've got two guests coming on who are going to be in that record 80-player field. Damon Heta, one half of the defending champions, Team Australia. He's going to be stopping by. Plus, for the first time, can't wait to bring you this one. He is evil. It is Evil Charlie, the winner of the weekly Dartscast Shirt of the Year for 2022. Karel Sedlacek of the Czech Republic. He's also going to be joining us. But let's take a look back at the weekend just gone. The World Series was back in New York for the second time. The US Darts Masters. And for the second time, Michael van Gerwen is the champion. He follows up that 7th Premier League title with a win at Madison Square Garden. And we spoke a lot about MVG on last week's show. So we're going to look away from events on the Oki, and there was a crowd of 3,500 in MSG on Saturday night to watch MVG win the title. Is darts now cutting through in America?
I mean, I can't say that it is. I mean, obviously it was well advertised in New York, and maybe it did get some attention as a result. And I know, there was some media that picked up on it. I know a few of the players were brought into shows in the New York area as guests and to talk about darts and to show what they're all about. But beyond that, I haven't seen any media attention about it. It didn't get mentioned on ESPN, which is our top sports site here. I don't think it was mentioned on any of the other ones as well. The network that televised it with DAZN, I think it's pronounced DAZN. I don't get it. I don't know anyone who does get it. It's a very, or at least relatively obscure channel. I know it's on some satellite provider, but I've never actually seen it. And as I said, it didn't get really mentioned in the mainstream media here. And as long as that's the case, I don't see how we can say the answer to this question is yes. That said, darts is growing in the U.S. I don't know which percentage of that 3,500 were Americans, or at least Americans and Canadians, but I know it's higher than it was in Vegas. I know the PDC made a big show about advertising to a British audience, as well as German and other European audiences, to go and buy tickets to fly out, have a holiday in Vegas, make a week out of it, at least a weekend, if not a full week. And a lot of people took them up on that idea. The New York event, sure, you can fly over, but the PDC aren't selling packages to the British audience to go and fly to that, because there's enough people who are going to it from the New York area, from other places in the US. That means there is obviously a base. And I've always known there was a base core group of darts fans here in the US. I'm part of that for starters, and have been for a decade now. And, I've gone to some local tournaments here. I've seen the people who play, and they all know who all the top pros are. They know who these people are. They watch darts. So there is a base here, but it's growing more organically. I don't think this event is doing that much to grow the audience because it's still not breaking through into the mainstream. It's still not getting a mention on ESPN, or if it is, I didn't see it, at least not online. Maybe they showed highlights on television at 3 a.m, but they didn't mention it at all on the website where most people get their content, where most people get their news or sports news. So I'm going to have to say no. The sport is growing. And if you do take the largest, broadest possible definition of cutting through, sure it is, but they're just minor incisions. It's still not getting into the mainstream. And that will take time, and it will take media attention and media coverage to get there. Credit for what there was. As I said at the beginning of this question, those Dimitri Vandenberg, Michael Smith, certainly some other players did go and do some media in the U.S., but it's still just small things until the actual event is getting promoted and shown on television networks that people get or streaming services that people get. I don't see how it really cuts through with a punch. So I'm saying no, but it is moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I've got to say I'm glad I got you to answer this question first, and you'll know a lot more than I do being based in America, but I went and had a look back at the figures and some of the lines that were coming out from the PDC 12 months ago after that first event in New York in 2022 to see what the figures that were being given then compared to this year. And last year, the US Darts Masters, the PDC said there were more than 7,000 fans that attended across the 3 sessions. Matt Porter, the chief exec of the PDC, saying it was the most successful event ever in America. The crowds in Madison Square Garden, particularly on finals night, were hugely encouraging. And I've not seen a figure for the 3 sessions in total this year. But as I said a moment ago, the PDC have said that a crowd of more than 3,500 were in the Garden for Saturday night's final session. Getting a figure like that in for one session, it's a good sign that things are progressing. The interest is picking up, but you've got to say, America, it's a huge market, and we talk about it in everyday life about maybe singers, bands from here in the UK, or presenters, comedians going to try and crack America, make it big in America. It's a tough market to break into fully, and the sports market is exactly the same. There's some massive sports in the States, but that's not to say there isn't a market for darts, because the interest, it is growing, as you say, that organic rate, and I see it getting stronger as the years go on. And it is important, I think, for the PDC to walk before they can run, because we don't want them to step things up too quickly. And I think we can say with confidence it is going to be a steady but sensible approach from Matt and the rest of his team. And we joke with Rod Studd, the commentator for Sky, about how he hates the word momentum in sport. But I think in this case, we are okay to use it, because there does seem to be some momentum for darts in the States, and it might only be a small dent or a small impact in the grand scheme of things. But nevertheless, I think we can see that from the weekend, if you build the interest, bring these top players to compete against the best from North America, it is going to generate a crowd, and it's going to generate some form of buzz. And for me, I'm interested to see what the plans are from someone like Peter Satira at the CDC or Matt Porter himself for the next 5 or 10 years with regards to darts in North America, because the popularity seems to be growing, maybe not at an astronomical rate, but I want to hear what their plans are, how they think they can make it bigger and bigger. And 2 years now we've had this event at Madison Square Garden, that the numbers in terms of attending seem to be going up, and I think that's a good sign. But overall, as you say, I think there's plenty more to come.
We will see. And now we'll move on to our question of the week. If our listeners didn't know, a change this year was that the winner of the North American Darts Championship would only be guaranteed a spot for the World Championship if they did not have a tour card. The change from previous years. Tour card holders were ineligible for that direct entry spot. Should the winner of the North American Darts Championship qualify for the Grand Slam and World Championship regardless of their PDC tour card status?
Yeah, it's a good question. And looking at our poll on Twitter at the moment, our listeners are fairly in agreement. 71% of you saying yes, 29% of you saying no. We've had a lot of feedback as well from you. I'll read a few tweets that we've had as well. Warren Allsworth saying Grand Slam yes, Worlds no. David Schlichting saying no, equal chances wherever possible. And this question, as you say, comes off the back of the weekend, the North American Darts Championship. Jeff Smith would later make the final with the US Darts Masters, lose to Michael van Gerwen, but earlier in the day won that title for the second time, beating Matt Campbell 6-5 in the final. And had it been last year, not only the title, he would have got that spot in the Grand Slam and the World Championships. But the new ruling that's come into place, because he's had a tour card, this is his third year with that tour card, he's not eligible for those two spots in those major events. The PDC, they have said that place is going to be awarded to someone from the CDC, a representative from them, which is a good thing. For me, I can see both sides of the argument on this one. I do have my own opinion on it, which I'll get to in a moment, and I'm not on the fence on it, but I do understand either side of it. And on one hand, why should tour card holders from certain countries get an extra opportunity to qualify for the likes of the World Championship and the Grand Slam, making it that level playing field for the other tour card holders who don't get those chances? But on the other side, we talk about making it a level playing field for the 128 on the tour. But for me, I can't look at that tournament at the weekend and say that it was a level playing field, because the carrot, it had been taken away from some of those players. And okay, there is that prestige for winning the title, calling yourself North American champion. That is a great achievement, and there is pressure on every game. But you're telling me there wasn't more pressure on a Jim Long or an Alex Spellman, for example, who don't have tour cards, and they're not just playing for the title, they are playing for a spot in the Grand Slam and the World Championship. That's a huge payday when you add all of that together, and the experience and what else comes with it. I think for me, they have levelled the playing field as far as the tour card holders, one pool of players, but it's to the detriment of another pool of players, because, and that's just my opinion, I'd have kept it as it is for now. I don't see the reason to change it yet. And I must say, every credit to Jeff Smith for winning the title, because I can't go without mentioning that 1-6-7 finish that he threw in the US Darts Masters, that semi-final last leg decider against Luke Humphreys later on that day. Check out of the year. I think it's going to be very tough to beat.
Yeah, you made some interesting points there, and I do think you can actually take it a step further. In one way, it even the playing field, but in another, you could also say that it's actually increased the advantage the tour card holders already have, because they're no longer playing under the pressure of trying to make sure they get to the World Championships, trying to get that spot at the Grand Slam. They're just playing a tournament that, yes, there's quite a bit of prize money at stake, as well as the honor of being North American Championships, but there's no other carrot dangling over them to play for. And you saw it with both finalists being tour card holders. One of the two defeated semifinalists was the third tour card holder. They already come in with an advantage because they've been playing against PDC caliber players all year. Some of them for longer, obviously. As you said, Jeff Smith's been a tour card holder for 3 years now. Matt Campbell's in his second year, as is Jules Van Dongen. So they've been playing against the overall higher caliber of player week in, week out. So they were already at an advantage. So to that regard, it actually, in some ways, increases the advantage because they're under that less level of pressure. But on the other hand, this is an event that the North America CDC is putting on, and they don't have to invite the tour card holders, but obviously the PDC wants them there, and it is good to add that extra carrot to encourage the top players to go to Q School, give the players playing the CDC circuit something to aspire to by showing the success that you can have coming out of the CDC circuit and bringing your skills over to the PDC tour. Therefore, it makes sense that they are invited. But at the end of the day, the spots come from the CDC's allocation. The CDC seem to be allocated, varies, but somewhere around 3 spots, sometimes more, sometimes a little less, but it keeps increasing. And those go to the top CDC players as well as the North American champion. If they want to make sure that the spots go to players who are playing the CDC circuit, then banning PDC tour card holders is fair and right. It also, in a way, is fair and right for the players in the PDC, because this is an event that won't always be won by tour card holders, as we saw with Leonard Gates last year, but they will be the favorites. They do have a built-in advantage, and therefore it increases their chance of keeping their tour card at the expense of other players. That said, if we look around, tour card holders are eligible to play in most of the other qualification tournaments. They can play in the Nordic and Baltic Tour. They can play, if they're not going to be at the World Championships, in the German Super League or in the Eastern European qualifier or the Western European qualifier, whichever qualifier ties to their nationality. This then makes this unique in that the North American players who already have to travel so far to go and play the circuit don't have that safety net of the North American Championship to play to try to make sure they get to the World Championships. I think keeping that World Championship spot open would have been worthwhile, but taking away the Grand Slam spot, which is an additional bonus that gives them an advantage over other tour card holders, I think was the right move. I would have split the baby here. I think it's defensible, and I think there's every argument for it being correct. But I think to take away the World Championship spot actually works to the detriment of the North American tour card holders, especially when you look at all other nationalities, with the exception of the British players who don't have their own independent qualifier. All the other nationalities can still play their regional qualifier. Because of that, I do think this makes it unique to the disadvantage of the North American players, and I don't agree with it.
Well, let us know your thoughts on that. Do you agree that the spot should go to tour card holders, or do you go against it? Are you happy with the rule change? Well, we're going to be back in a moment to look ahead to the World Cup, but before then, let's hear from one of the defending champions. Here's our chat with Australia's Damon Heta.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by one half of the reigning PDC World Cup of Darts champions, Damon Heta. Thanks for the time, Damon. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Cheers for having us on.
Great to have you back on, and not long to go until you and Simon Whitlock team up again to try and defend that title. But before then, at the weekend, I saw you were up in Scotland doing some exhibitions wearing a kilt. I'm guessing that's the first time you've played darts whilst wearing a kilt as well?
Yeah, 100%. I wasn't a true Scotsman, though, apparently.
We won't get into that. It's a family show. Well, it's almost a year on from that history-making win in the World Cup. We had you on the show just after you won the title when you said you were feeling magic. So what has the last year been like as World Cup champion?
Yeah, it's come around thick and fast, hasn't it? It's just been darts every week ever since. A bit mental, but no, still enjoying it, mate. It's just looking forward now. We got the new format happening, and I think it's going to be one for the viewers to keep an eye on, and I think there'll be a lot of upsets.
We saw afterwards as well the media interest back home in Australia. You were doing interviews with channels back home. Talk us through just how much traction that win got back in Australia.
Yeah, it was insane, mate. When I went home, I went back home about 10 days before the World Series, and it was just everywhere that I went for food, like in pubs and stuff, it was still being played then, and I had like a lot of random people come up to me and wish me luck and congratulations and stuff, and it was just normally I didn't even get that after the Brisbane Masters, so to get it then, it just made it a bit more exposure, and darts was growing from there, and after COVID and that, and it was just a good time for it to happen, really.
Yeah, it's well deserved. And you mentioned there going back home for the World Series, that the first time the World Series was back in Australia since 2019, your first visit back since pre-pandemic. So how special was that trip, not just going back as World Cup champions, but also having not seen some of your friends and family for so long as well?
Yeah, that was the main thing, mate. Seeing the friends and family, like I said, I was just flat out. Lunch, I was out for lunch everywhere, out for dinner everywhere. I didn't even get to spend too much time at my house. But I absolutely enjoyed it. And maybe the 10 days, it probably wasn't even enough. So this time we're going to have a little bit extra time. It'd be my second time back within 3.5, nearly 4 years. So all my family's getting older, and my wife's family's getting older, so we want to make them moments a bit more special when we go back every time.
You said to us that you were respecting your elders and letting Simon keep hold of the trophy for this first 6 months, but you would have it for the last 6 months. So is the trophy in your possession, or have you had to give it back now?
I had to hand it the other week back in Leicester. They've got her updated and get it all ready for this year. So hopefully we bring it back with their name on it.
We shall see. Well, looking back at the last half of 2022, I'm sure you were disappointed with how the rest of the majors went for you, but in and amongst that, you did win your first Euro Tour title, beating Michael van Gerwen and Peter Wright in last leg deciders in the semis and the final. Can you put your finger on where it went wrong in the majors? Because clearly the game was there in Gibraltar.
Yeah, I think my game all year was there. It was just, with the majors, looking back and watching games and stuff like that, I pretty much just tried too hard and had a lot of expectation of myself, and it was like throwing every dart was like my life on the line, you know what I mean? And maybe I just expected it to happen and wanted it to happen too much that it just didn't happen for me. I'm still figuring out my game all the time and still learning, and this year has been a bit of a learning curve from that, looking back. So, and that's probably where my walk-ons have come into play, is more of the fact that I'm getting up there and I'm loose from the start, not so tense and not so driven to win, or not to win, but to try really hard. So I'm just taking a different approach, and at the moment this year I'm getting results on these TV stages, and hopefully this year it'll be a different story.
Yeah, we're going to come on to those walk-ons a bit later, but just touching on that win in Gibraltar, and I was looking back, that last leg against Van Gerwen cleaned up in 15 darts on throw, but the decider with Peter Wright, you both had multiple match darts in that last leg. So how do you try and stay calm in those situations?
Yeah, that's the thing. You only got to put yourself in them situations to have the experience of it, and then you can keep learning from there. But you don't really want to be in them positions. You really just want to smash it and get it out of the way. But there's not too much they can prepare you for that. It's what you play for as well, and what the thrill and the excitement of being in them situations. And most of the time, it's only a width of a wire that probably decides the game. And a lot of players, I dare say the same thing. They've been in that situation, and it's just how you handle it. I think it's all mental by that stage. It was a big learning curve, big learning thing for me, and I thought I could bring more of that on in for the big TV events. But like I said, last year it didn't happen for me, and I'm looking for better this year. I'm getting not playing as great as I was, but I'm getting the wins this year, and that's all that matters.
Well, let's get on to this year. And you mentioned about the Euro Tour. We started to be shown on TV a lot more here in the UK as well, so more people are going to see the deep runs that you're having. You've had 2 quarterfinals, 4 semi-finals, so how pleased have you been with that consistency so far?
Yeah, massive, mate. It's all it just feels just get the first win out of the way. And it feels like everything. I mean, you do want to go further and further every time, but that first win is massive as a seed anyway, and it just puts everything at ease, you could say. So I'm really stoked with how I'm getting these results and grinding them out. I've had a lot of 6.5s or 6.4s, and I just find myself steady before I get up there. I feel just relaxed and really happy about. I'm just happy about my game. It's not incredible, but I'm doing the right things at the right time.
And you touched on the walk-ons as well on the Euro Tour. We've seen you go to town with the walk-ons, the different songs coming out in different costumes as well. Where did that idea come from? Is it something we could see in the majors as well?
Yeah, I think it just stemmed, like I said, when I watched back my games, and like when I won the World Cup last year, I was joking around a lot, with Dimmy on stage, and even after, I was just really loose and having a good time, and and then when I won Gibraltar, I was doing the same thing. I was having fun. I was do a little dance here and there, and then this year, I just stemmed from one thing to another. It was only small, and then next minute it happened in, I think it was like Munich was the big change where I was doing that, and I just had such a good time and played well. I think I made the semis there, was it? I think in Munich, and so I just sort of stemmed on, and next minute once I started doing it, enjoying myself, I just keep rolling with it until I get a bit unstuck. But why everything's working. I'll be probably silly not to do it in the majors and stuff, because, like I said, it's worked for me. I'm not trying too hard. I'm getting up there relaxed already, and yeah, we'll just see where it goes.
Well, if you're taking suggestions on board for the World Match Players, you are the Heat, and it is hot in the Winter Gardens. Maybe a tribute to the original Heat, Dennis Ovens, and you could walk out to The Heat Is On by Glenn Frey.
Well, that's an option, mate. That's an option. But I think I've got something a little up my sleeve for the match play, so we'll see how we go.
Look forward to seeing that. And just on the match play, because you're looking like going to be a seed for the first time, does that make much of a difference, or given the standard these days, are you expecting a tough draw? Probably Josh Rock or Gary Anderson, now that we've said that.
Oh, thanks, mate. Nah, that's it. You know, you're playing someone that's been in form for the whole year if you're on the seeded side. So, yeah, it's either either, isn't it? It's the best. It's pretty much the best on form players and the best players in the world. So, I think you're just going to be in for a game, and as long as you can just go up there and play your game and stick to yourself, you know what I mean. You just hope for the best results and hope for the win, and that's all you can do is do your best.
Well, before the match play, all eyes are on the World Cup next week, and you touched on it. The new format could lead to some more shocks, could be more exciting for the viewers. The draw's not been made when we're talking, but what's your thoughts on the format going into it this year? Because it is going to be a shorter format in that early round for you guys.
Yeah, it's still a bit cutthroat, don't get me wrong, but you've got that second chance if you lose the first game. I don't think, it's not be-all, end-all, especially for the players that are travelling from, far. They're not just going to roll up and be a cutthroat game, first to five, and then that's it. They're on the plane home again, and it's a bit heartbreaking. But as long as, they're going to get they're going to get two games in so they can showcase their skills and their talent. And it just, that doubles game just levels the field a little bit. And, if we come out of that, the group stages, which would be massive, it's straight into a long format knockout. I'm pretty sure it's like best of 15 or something. So definitely I think the people actually, that's what they wanted. The players, that's what they wanted. So I think it's going to be a great tournament and great for viewing.
Yeah, best of 15 for that second round, so a lot longer to breathe for that one, and no more singles. As we know, it is going to be all pairs all the way through. Of course, last year we saw you and Simon switch things up with the order during the tournament, but you can't do that this year. So does that take, a little bit of pressure off? You've not got to worry about who's going to go up first, who's going up second?
Yeah, I think when it comes to that, I don't think it's going to matter a great deal. So I think if you both just look out for each other and one's on, one's off, or you're both on, you know what I mean? You got someone there in your ear while you're up there to take that sort of pressure away, what you're thinking, and you just feel a bit more relaxed up there when it's the two of you. And we got a good thing going on, so I can't see why we can't keep our form going where we go really well in the World Cup.
Definitely, and not just winning that title for the first time for Australia last year, you came so close to making history as well. Simon missing that double 18 for a 9-darter. Do you think now that we are going to get that longer format for the pairs, that 9-darter, we could see it this time?
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that, but I would imagine so. You got more chances, haven't we? So I feel that someone will hit it this year. Yeah, to be fair.
We hope so. Well, just lastly, let's say it is a Wales-Australia final again. Johnny Clayton leaves 1-6-1 for the match. You're on 1-2-1. Are you going to lay up for the ball, or are you going to go for it?
Well, I think I'll go for it now, especially against Johnny. I know. But look, I think it'll make me think about it. So I think I would go for it this time.
Good man. Well, Damon, it's always a pleasure to chat to you. We do appreciate the time, and we wish you all the best with that defence of the World Cup next week and what else is to come in 2023 as well.
Yeah, massive, mate. Cheers for that.
Thanks again to Damon for joining us. Now the 40 teams are now confirmed for the PDC World Cup of Darts next week, but who should be the favourite to go all the way and lift the title?
Ooh, this is definitely a tricky question, because there are some really good teams who are in some really good form right now. And, starting with the 4-seeded nations that have a bye, I think that has to, in some regards, give them an advantage, but in others, and I'll get to that, work to their detriment. You look at the English team, Rob Cross just barely held on to the second spot in the English team, winning his first Euro Tour title when a loss to Luke Humphries would have meant he dropped out of the side. And he's partnered with Michael Smith, who won 3 consecutive Premier League nights, has won a Euro Tour, is the world champ, world number 1. And while he's not been consistently the best player this year since winning the world title, he's had quite a few really good spells, and those have more been coming in the last couple months. Rob Cross will obviously also be buoyed by winning that first Euro Tour title, and that makes them a really formidable pair. The Welsh team, Geraint Price, didn't have the best finals night in the Premier League, had the best semi-final, but just didn't have it in the final. But beyond that, he topped the Premier League table. He hasn't played many of the Euro Tours, but he's won one of them. He's been just absolutely phenomenal. I think over the course of the year has been the best player. And he's partnered by Johnny Clayton, who I said a couple weeks ago before the Premier League final, I think right now is one of the 4 best players in the world. And that's a big step up on where he was at the beginning of the year when he was probably still top 10, but not looking like the player he's been the last few years. Both of these come in playing their best starts of the year. And that means you have 2 of the top 4 players in a side. Michael van Gerwen, he's improving again. And that's saying something because last year looked like he wasn't necessarily back to where he was 7 years ago, but he was back to being the best player in the world. It didn't happen in the World Championship final. It hasn't consistently happened this year, particularly in major finals, losing as well at the UK Open final. But he reached his best in the Premier League final, beating Geraint Price to a pulp when Gezi was looking unbeatable in the semifinal. And Van Gerwen is now possibly playing the best he's played in 7 years, better than he was last year. Danny Noppert's a question mark. He's been inconsistent this year. But if MVG's playing his best, that will make him really tough. And I think you have to then say that these are the 3 favorites in any given order. I'll say the Welsh team is the overall favorite because both of them are playing like top 4 players. I think Gezi is still the best player in the world right now, even though it's close between him and Van Gerwen. But Johnny Clayton is also a top 4 player. Danny Noppert, right now at least, is not. But I did mention that having that bye to the second round, it might seem like an advantage because, well, you avoid the group stage. But on the other hand, the group stage could be important, especially for teams that haven't played together before, or at the very least haven't played together in a while. Gary Anderson hasn't played the last few World Cups. That will hurt the Scottish team. And even though the other teams have played together, they haven't played together in at least a year. It's not like you're playing doubles week in, week out. The other seeded teams like Belgium, the defending champions Australia, Northern Ireland, who all are, didn't even mention the host nation, Germany, all have really good teams, and they will get that added bonus of being able to play a few matches together before they get into those later stages. It means that they can come together, they can get used to the format, and they can get used to the format with a little breathing room where a loss won't necessarily mean you're out of the tournament. That's the one thing that the group stage has. That gives them an advantage, and maybe that could mean the Australian team or the Belgian team or the German team or the Irish team or maybe some other team, the Canadian team. They just did pretty well in the North American Darts Championship, will be able to go a little bit further than they otherwise would because they get those extra matches under their belt. I still think those top 3 seeds are the favorite, but I don't think it's as heavy as it could be if all teams were entering at the same stage.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. And I was trying to find a market for this online, but couldn't find one priced up yet. So we're going to see closer to the time how close we are to the bookies when they do put those prices out. And I think for me, you had it as well. It's no surprise. I've got to put Wales as the favourites again. Geraint Price, Johnny Clayton. They're not the top seeds or even the second seeds. We think that's going to be the Netherlands, just pipping them to the number 2 seed position. But third seeds, I don't think it matters too much because you go back 2020 when they won the title, they were the second seeds, and for the last 2 years they have been that position again, the number 2 seed. And Price and Clayton, the last 2 years, although they've not got their hands on that trophy again, they've lost to the eventual champions in each of the last 2 years. 2021, they lost in that pairs decider. Last leg to Scotland, Peter Wright and John Henderson, even though they averaged 103, close to 104 in that decider in the pairs. And then last year, losing to Australia in the final. And I think, in fairness, I know it's only a short race. Back then, it was the best of sevens we were having then. But how often do you see Gerwyn Price average 80, Johnny Clayton 88 in that last game? They did fall well short of their high standards in that final, and take nothing away from Australia. Damon Heta and Simon Whitlock, they were deserved champions, but I still think Price and Clayton, they are the pair to beat. And we've got to mention, as you said, that the new format we've got for this year, the group stage, it's going to be all pairs all the way through. And going back to 2020 onwards, Price and Clayton, they are 9 wins, 1 defeat in pairs matches. They're a pair that we know get on very well off the oche, on the oche. They've got a lot of respect for each other. Gerwyn Price, in the lead up to the playoffs in the Premier League a few weeks ago now, he said that the World Cup for him ranks at number 2 on what he's achieved in the game, just behind the World Championship. So that shows you how much this tournament means to him, and winning the World Cup for Wales, and that's what they'll be looking to try and do again. And yeah, you've got to fancy their chances of having another good run, but it is a strong field of players, and there's going to be more unknowns this year. We know that because we are going up from 32 to 40 teams. You've got the shorter race in the first round. Previously, it was first to 6 legs. Now in the group stage, okay, you are going to get 2 games, 2 bites of the cherry, but it is a shorter race, first to 4 legs. Wales, we know they're not going to have to worry about that as one of the 4 seeds. They've got that bye through to the second round, and it jumps up to a first to 8 legs that the format is going to play into their hands, I think. And I've got Wales as the favourites. Then I'll go with England just ahead of the Netherlands. I think Michael Smith, Rob Cross, the top seeds. Rob Cross, we've seen him pick up a few titles in the last few weeks. He missed that dart at the ball for the 167 to reach the final in New York at the weekend. So he's in some relative good form. And MVG, Danny Noppert, back together this year. Not quite sure what that partnership's going to be like. 2 quality players. So I'm going to put them as my third favourites, and then it's a toss-up between Scotland and the reigning champions Australia. And we just saw Peter Wright lose first round at the weekend in the US Darts Masters. It was a subpar display from him, but being alongside Gary Anderson, who's thrown some excellent stuff this year, is that going to spur him on? And for me, I probably would fancy Australia more than Scotland, but I think the big name factor, Gary Anderson being back involved, they've got that bye to the second round. I think that'll probably put them just ahead of Australia with the bookmakers. So I'll go Scotland 4, Australia 5. They're my top 5 favourites.
Okay, we'll see how that goes. I think we're mostly in agreement there. We'll have just a couple more questions. We'll switch gears and look ahead now to something that might be a month and a half off, but it will be almost upon us after the middle of next week, because there's only 3 events to go now before the cutoff for the World Match Play. And as I said, 2 of those 3 events will be at the beginning of next week, as there's 2 Players' Championships in Germany on Monday and Tuesday after the conclusion of the World Cup of Darts, which also is in Germany. Currently, the last spot in the top 16 is held by James Wade. He's not guaranteed to get in if he drops out of the top 16, but he almost is certainly in. He could, though, drop into those Pro Tour spots, but it's a lot closer near the bottom, as Steve Beaton, Raymond Van Barneveld, Kim Huybrechts, and Brendan Dolan currently have the last 4 spots, but a bunch of players are within striking distance of them. Is there anyone you fancy who could move into those qualification spots?
Yes, it's going to be a really interesting start to next week with those 2 Players' Championship events. And as you mentioned there, James Wade could end up qualifying for the World Match Play, not as a seed, as a Pro Tour qualifier. And that would probably be the first time that he's done that since he made his debut in the tournament back in 2006. He's been a mainstay in that top 16 for such a long time, but that position is under threat. And with the prize money that's gone up on the Pro Tour this year, there's so much more to play for, and perhaps there are more players looking at that race to the match play going, you know what, I've still got a chance here if I can put together a good run next week, or if they're playing in that last Euro Tour before the cut-off, they've got a shot. And I think at the moment, I believe we've got just the 2 debutants in that provisional field so far for Blackpool. That is Josh Rock, who's top of that list on the Pro Tour. I think he's had his Blackpool B&B booked for months now. I wouldn't blame him. And the other one Mike Dedeker, that run to the final in one of the Players' Championships a few weeks ago, has propelled him up to number 12 on those Pro Tour spots, and he's not going to be in that Euro Tour, the last event before the cut-off, but 42 grand. I think he's around 7 grand clear of number 17. He's going to take something special for him now to drop those 5 places. I'm not saying he's guaranteed, but I think 12 upwards, they're in. Then you've got Steve Beaton, Raymond van Barneveld, Kim Huybrechts, Brendan Dolan, and from players that are looking to make their debuts at the Winter Gardens, you've got 4 players there that have got a lot of appearances between them. I think you've got Dolan's on 8, Huybrechts 8, Van Barneveld, who's not been in it since 2018, he's been in it 12 times, and Steve Beaton, he had that long consecutive run. He's been in 21 World Match Plays, not been in it since 2020, and I think Steve Beaton is in the spots at the moment, but he's someone that a lot of darts fans want to see him get in that field, don't they? Not just Dan Dawson, all of the adoring fans for the Bronze Adonis, they want to see him get back to that World Match Play, because it's been a difficult last few years for him. He's been closer towards the bottom end of the top 64 than towards the top 32, and there's been talk of, is this going to be his last year on the tour? He's been on our show and said that Q School, that's never going to be on his radar. If he drops off the tour, that's going to be it in terms of his professional status in the game. We want a few more years of him playing on the tour for now anyway. And if I'm looking at players outside of that top 16, if you're looking at the stats, players in and around the mix for those last few spots, I don't think many are playing better than Jim Williams. And looking at it, he is 6 grand off. But you look at the Players' Championship averages for this year, and he is 16th on that list. 95.92 is the average, and it's not equated to a lot of deep runs like you'd expect. I think he's had 1 quarter final. There's quite a few last 32 scattered in there as well. But we've got to add that he's missed a few events. That I think he's missed 1 Players' Championship. He's pulled out of a Euro Tour a few months ago for personal reasons, and if he'd have played in those 2 events, that gap could have been a lot closer. But as things stand, he's still got a chance. He's going to be in those 2 Players' Championships. He's going to be in that last Euro Tour event. And if just focusing on those floor events, if you're averaging close to 96 over 25 games on the floor, you're going to give yourself every chance of going far on one of those days. And we know on the floor he can win titles. He won a title last year, his first year on the tour. So for me, if I'm looking at someone, I think Jim Williams could be the one to pick out there. And just lastly, Willie O'Connor, someone that we spoke about recently, not been in the best of form. And it's crazy to think that he's never made the match play still. But if he could find something next week, again, someone that's going to be in that last Euro Tour, that could just be enough to squeeze him in as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. Most of the players other than Jim Williams that are currently just outside aren't really in the greatest of form. You mentioned Jim Williams is 16th in averages. Willie O'Connor this year is 86th. Simon Whitlock is 51st. And of those players, of the next 5 that are currently outside, those are the 3 that will still have a chance at the last Euro Tour event at the end of the month, beginning of July, which means if you're Maros Razma, who's a little over 4,000 pounds back, or Ricardo Pietreko, who's a little under 6,000 pounds back, these are your last 2 chances, unless you get in off the reserve list, which is very unlikely that far down the Pro Tour order of merit. That means that the next couple days, those 2 days next week, I guess. By the time you're listening to this, it'll still be a few days off unless you decide to wait until Sunday to listen. But let's say you wait till Sunday, so the next couple days is accurate. Those were the last chance, or the last really good chance for many of these players. And if you're Maros Razma, as I said, it's a little over 4,000 pounds back. That means even if he makes a semifinal on one of the days, that's still not going to put him provisionally in the field. He's going to have to win a match the following day and hope that Brendan Dolan hasn't won a match on either days. That leaves a lot of work for those players to do. And even Jim Williams, you mentioned he's 6,000 pounds back. He is in the Euro Tour, but that 6,000 pounds back is including 1,000 pounds from making it to that Euro Tour event. That means he's going to have to outdo Brendan Dolan by a full, in essence, semifinal in the Euro Tour, or 2 quarterfinals in the Players' Championships, or semifinal at last 16 in the Players' Championships. He has to do that much better than Brendan Dolan to catch up to him. And Brendan Dolan will be in that Euro Tour event. Kim Huybrechts, the next person ahead of him, will be in that Euro Tour event. Raymond van Barneveld will also. Steve Beaton's the only player within striking distance who's not in the last Euro Tour event before the cutoff. That means that most of these players just have are going to need to have a run of their lives, or at least of their season, if they're going to catch him. Whitlock is a little bit closer. He's only 2,000 pounds back. And while he's not playing as well as Jim Williams, 51st on averages, that might sound a little poor, but it also is more telling you just how good the standard is now. That's still an average of over 93. And there are some players right around him who are doing okay. You know who's less than a quarter of a point ahead of him in averages so far this year in Players' Championships? Michael Smith, the world number 1. So it's not like Whitlock's doing poorly. It's just the standard has gone up that much. But he still is 2,000 pounds back. That's a last 16, a board title behind the next person, 3,000 pounds behind Kim Hybrex, who's won a title this year. It's going to be tough. And Jim Williams is playing the best of those chasing. Simon Whitlock is the one who's closest. I think those are the two who are most likely. But I don't think the field is going to change. I just have a feeling we have it set as it's going to end up. I think the players who are currently in will do enough to keep Whitlock, to keep O'Connor, to keep Williams, to keep anyone else at bay. Obviously, if Matt Campbell, if Keen Barry go and they win a title on Monday, that changes the conversation, and they're good enough to do so. But I think it's going to take something like that. It's going to take a player going through and winning a title to really shake this up. And I don't see the field changing from where it is right now.
We shall see. Well, it's a big week of darts in Germany next week, and let's get to our next guest. He is going to be one of the players playing not just in those Players' Championship events, but also the PDC World Cup of Darts. Here's our chat with Karel Sedlacek.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by Evil Charlie, Karel Sedlacek. Thanks very much for the time, Karel. How are you doing?
Thank you. I am fantastic. I'm feeling well, and I'm spending time with my family, and I'm really happy.
Glad to hear. Well, we're talking just over a week before the PDC World Cup. Once again, you and Adam Gavlas are going to be representing the Czech Republic. How are you feeling ahead of putting on that shirt again and playing for your country?
Yeah, that will be for me one of the best moments in the season. But I play really like for my country, and with Adam, I think we will be strong, and we can play more good matches, I think.
For many darts fans, the first time they saw you play was at the Lakeside in 2014. But let's go back to the start for you in darts. I read you've been playing darts now for more than 25 years. How and when did you discover the game?
Yeah, I played in Lakeside 2 times, 2014 and 2015, and it was one of the best darts experience. I was young, maybe young, and every time I want to play some big tournament, Lakeside for me was excellent tournament, and I could be play there. It was amazing experience for me.
Talking about darts where you are in the Czech Republic, what's it like over there in terms of its popularity and how many people are playing the game?
I think in Czech Republic we have really good players, and before 10 years ago, I say my dad's friend can play more difficult tournaments. We must going to some tournaments, some best tournaments, and we must play hard matches. And for people, it's I think now it's really good. But me and Adam play Pro Tour, and can see us on top tournaments of the world. It's really very popularity for them, I think.
One game I have to mention was your game with Glen Durrant at Lakeside in 2015. You had a 99 average in defeat, but playing at that high level on stage, did that give you belief that you could go further in darts?
Yeah, I played against Glen Durrant, and I think for me was one of the best experience. But I play, I think, normally darts, and after the match, referee said me, Karel, you have 99 average. Really? Yeah, 99, 97. Oh, no, I play normally darts. No, you play fantastic. And Bobby George came to me and congrats, Karel, you played really good. I said, oh, really? It was amazing situation, I think.
Good times. Well, since then, of course, you've gone on to the PDC, and I want to move on to 2019, and I'm sure it's another moment that you remember very fondly, the Czech Darts Open, the first Euro Tour in the Czech Republic, and you won in the first round in front of your home crowd. What did that mean to you?
That was good for me. I think I remember crowds was fantastic, and for me, for player from Eastern Europe, it really good it was. I don't know what to say more.
Well, let's head into 2020, and at Q School you won your tour card for the first time. How proud a moment was that for you to join the professionals on the tour?
Yeah, 1 year before 2020, I played Q School, and I missed 2 cards, only 1 point more. And next year, I say for me, you can play your darts, and you can win some tournament, Q School tournament. And I do it. I take my darts, and I play. I think maybe the best darts, and I do it.
Yeah, it was a great achievement, and not long after that we saw the world shut down with the pandemic, and as one of the players based outside of the UK, I'm sure it was a challenging time getting over to the tournaments, but we get towards the end of 2020, and Ali Pali, you're back there playing again, but this time there was no fans. What was that experience like?
It was a horrible time for darts player, I think, for darts players. But you can play the best tournaments, and without crowds, without people, it's really, I don't know what to say. Very strange. Special word. Yeah. I don't know what to say more. Well, for me, it was really difficult traveling from Czech, from Prague to England. It was really difficult. I must go from Prague to sometime to Amsterdam, sometime to Frankfurt, and isolation in the hotel was really special, very strange. I think that was bad time for players.
Thankfully, the tour is back to normal now, but last year, of course, you didn't have a tour card, but fair to say that 2022 went really well for you without that tour card. You qualified for 9 European Tour events, the European Championship and the World Championship. What do you think clicked for you last year?
After the lost my card, I said to myself, Karel, you can play good darts. Why don't use it? Why don't play it? And I say, Karel, come on, Evil, let's go. And it was maybe the best season without tour card. I think I played European Championship, many tournaments of Euro Tour and World Champ, and I lost in the second round against Dirk. I was, I think, only one bullseye from card for next season.
Yeah, I remember watching that game and seeing how close you were to getting that tour card, getting in the top 64, but you got over that disappointment. You went back to Q School in January this year, you got your tour card back. So how much confidence did you take from that? And also what we just spoke about, how much success you had last year?
I was going to Q School and I was a little sick. It was problem for me. I'm lying 2 days before. I'm lying in bed and I was bad. And I was playing the first tournament. I lost 6-0 in the first round, and I played maybe 70 average. I was really slowly, really tired, and I say for me, Karel, that's no good. See you next day, and you can play darts and see you next day. And next day, second day, I was still better, and I play final against Corey Kedley, and I lost, but I missed some darts for doubles, and I had I think 5 points to rank, and I said, Karel, super, let's go, next day it will be better. And I play, and I take a card. It's really amazing, I think.
Yeah, it's great to see you get that tour card back. And away from your darts, we have to mention as well your nickname, Evil Charlie. Can you tell us how that nickname came about?
My nickname, Evil Charlie, in the start of my darts career, I played some good matches, and I played really good. Maybe sometime 12 darts, sometime 11 darts, and someone from a ground say, "Oh, that's Evil Charlie, play really good." And I hear Evil Charlie, that's good. And maybe 27 years ago, and I'm Evil Charlie.
Excellent. Well, you're also the winner of our Dart Shirt of the Year for last year, voted for by our listeners of this show, and it's your shirt based on the Max and Paddy TV show here in the UK. Have you watched that show yet?
That is the job from Matthew World. A special idea from him, and for the first time I looking to T-shirt, and I say to him, what is this? What is this? And he told me about it, and like, that's good. That's good, really good from England, the British people, maybe, I think. But in Czech Republic, in in Czech Republic, grounds have little more like Evil Charlie, red and black and red t-shirt. But Mexican is amazing dart shirt, I think.
We love it. And you mentioned your manager, Matt Ward. You're part of his stable of players, MDA. And during the World Championship, I loved watching the videos that he put out on YouTube, seeing you guys behind the scenes. It looks like you've got a great relationship with Matt and the rest of the players. So how much does that support help you as well?
For me, the main man is Matthew, and complete team. MDA is really good for me. I'm really happy if I succeed in the next 3 years in this group. But for our people, for our player from Czech Republic, it's the best. It's the best opinion for darts life, I think. Without a good manager team and some sponsors, it's really difficult for Czech players if can play the best darts. Without this is problem. But I think for everyone from Czech players, if can see me and Adam every see this option to go to better darts life, and they can play better and better and following us, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And on those videos, you'd often get called Karel Sedlacek. Where did that name come from?
I think this is idea from Harry Ward. Harry Ward sometime said me, "Hey, Karel Sedlacek," and I said, "What?" "Oh, Karel Sedlacek." It's like, good Sedlacek, and it's only joke. And for the next time, every said me, "Karel Sedlacek." Like, hi guys. Only joking, but it's really amazing.
Looking ahead to the World Cup next week, and for you, it's going to be a 7th consecutive appearance in the tournament. And for the Czech Republic, I can't believe you're still looking for that first win, because you guys have played really well in the past. You had a 103 average in the first round one year. You had some tough draws as well. But do you think that this year is going to be the year that you and Adam get that first win?
Yeah, thank you. I think we have to minimum won the group, and we want to play more and more. I think now we have a biggest chance, and we can everything. And I hope we won the group, and maybe more and more.
And lastly, but before we let you go, looking ahead, you've got the World Series coming up next month. Lots to look forward to. But what is the goal for you for the rest of this year? What are you focusing on?
I think the big target for me is World Champ. World Champ is the biggest tournament of the world with best players, and for every players, I think it is the best experience of the season, and I think World Champ is the first, and I want to play. I want play good every matches and I think I can be stronger and better, but sometimes I have a problem in the match with doubles, and sometimes I played fantastic darts, and I hope I will be better and stronger, and I want play better, and I want enjoying darts, enjoying my life, and I love my family, and I really like to spending the time with my family, and everything what I do for my family. I lived a happy life, I think.
Glad to hear. Well, Karel, Evil Charlie, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you on the show. We appreciate you taking out the time, and we wish you and Adam all the best with the World Cup next week. And for yourself, good luck.
Once more, thank you. Once more, thank you so much, and sorry for my English, and I think I will be better in English too. I'm going to private school, and I hope sometime I hope I will speak better.
Thanks again to Karel for joining us, Sam. We're going to finish up the show with a listener question. Comes from friend of the show, Matt Langan, who says, absolute scenes at the US Darts Masters at the weekend. Can't believe Burton hasn't come yet. Next year?
Yeah, I'll think about it. Anything else for this week?
Well, I was going to say, we put the tweet out about Jeff Smith's 167 being that new front runner for checkout of the year, and this was Matt's reply. He was he mentioned that your BFF, Mr. Barry Hearn, was sat a table down from him. So obviously Matt's doing well for himself to be sat so close to your BFF.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to go at one of these years. I think it will be fun, and maybe next year is the year I will go up for it. I don't know. I mean, even though it's closer, I'd rather go and tend to Euro Tour. Those are more fun because they're 47 matches as opposed to 14 matches. Who doesn't like a reason to fly to Germany or somewhere else in Europe for a weekend? So I don't know. It's easy. I will consider it. Who knows? Maybe I'll be playing in it next year. I put that at about 1 in 10,000 odds, but stranger things have happened. I have hit 10 180s already this year, so I'm well on my way. But Alex, what about you? You think you're ever going to make an appearance stateside for it?
I'd absolutely love to. Yeah, that'd be excellent to get over to New York and be at that event. And we did, I think when we had Christopher Kemp for Okipedia on the show, we did joke about you two entering you two into the qualifiers just on the off chance that you did play each other and we could find out who is the best American darts statistician when it comes to actually playing darts. But yeah, I think I'm with you actually. I think the Euro Tour, that's next on my bucket list. I've not been to one of those before, and of course we've got the big one next April, the 50th staging of the Torremolinos Darts Festival, which I'm considering as well. So plenty of darts to choose from. Just got to pick which ones to go to.
Yeah, maybe we'll sign up for that, and we can play pairs in that.
That would be a dream. I'd love it to happen. I'll have a chat with my mate Des.
All right. Well, anything else for this week?
Well, as always, we have to say big thank you to our guest for joining us, to Damon for his time, to Karel as well. Great to get him on the show. Thanks to Matt Ward at MDA for his help with getting us in touch with Karel. And thanks to our sponsor, Dartwolf. If you want more Dynamite Darts content, head on over to dartwolf.tv. Give Dartwolf a follow on Twitter as well, at Dartwolf180. We appreciate the support. And thanks to everyone for listening. We appreciate that as well. We'll see you guys next week. It's going to be a quick turnaround between the Pro Tours and the World Cup, but we're back to look ahead to this revamped World Cup. 40 teams, all pairs, all the players looking to get their hands on that Coast Stompay trophy. But before then, make sure you enjoy the darts.
Yes, indeed. Hopefully this is the year that the U.S. team gets their hands on the greatest named trophy, greatest unofficially named trophy in world sports. Thanks to our listeners, our sponsors. Thanks to everyone. It's the middle of the year now. It's summer. Get out, enjoy it. Enjoy the good weather, but make sure you get in time. You can enjoy the darts. It's the World Cup. It's the World Cup we've all been waiting for, because we now have pretty much what we've all been asking for years, pairs play. Enjoy it. Hang tight if you have to, and then let loose. It is darts. We'll see you next week.